Hi, all of us family. My name is Amy and I am from San Francisco. My Recount to Remember story starts last year, but it actually continues through to today. Last year, almost a year ago in March, I was getting ready to take my youngest daughter on a trip down to LA to visit a friend, and on the way down, noticed that something just was not right with my daughter. She was really tired and lethargic. She needed to go to the bathroom a number of times. I mean, every hour we were stopping and in urgent need of a restroom. And after about the fourth time we stopped, when we got back in the car, I remember praying to God, like, as soon as she fell asleep again, I started praying to God, like, I don't know what is going on here, but I feel like there's something that I'm missing and something that I don't know. But you know, God, what is happening. And if it is in your will for me to know, and if it's something that I need to know for our safety, God, I pray that you would just make it abundantly clear. At the fifth stop, while she was using the restroom, I was standing in the gas station and I heard a voice whisper in my ear, "Diabetes." And I looked around really quick around me. I don't know who I thought would be whispering diabetes into my ear in a gas station in the middle of California, but I then quickly thought to myself, diabetes, do kids get diabetes? There's no diabetes that runs in our family. So I Googled it, and the first thing to pop up was the common symptoms or signs of diabetes in children. And the list was not long, but she was showing every single sign on that list. She was tired. She was extra fatigued. She was losing weight. She was using the bathroom really frequently. She was very thirsty. As I stood there and the realization kind of came over me, like, oh, all of these things have kind of been happening the last several weeks to a month. I hadn't really put them all together because they'd been happening at separate times. I also very quickly told myself, okay, don't freak yourself out. Just make an appointment with her pediatrician for when you get back in 3 days and it'll be fine. So we got back on the road and I just couldn't get that nagging feeling out of my head. Like, well, if it's diabetes, like, is that serious? Do I need to look into this like right away? So I started praying to God again. God, if it's something that needs to be dealt with right now, I pray you would make that abundantly clear. In whatever way you can, make it abundantly clear, Lord. So we got to LA. It took us a little longer than expected, but the friend that we were there to visit, my friend Christina, while Mila was taking a shower that evening, said, "Hey, Mila looks like thinner than she was the last time that I saw her. Like, I just saw her a month ago, but I feel like she's lost weight." So I told Christina what happened on the drive down, and she said, "Okay, you know, a lot of people in my family have diabetes, right? Like, I have a blood glucose monitor or a blood test kit, and we can check it in the morning if you think that that's really what's going on." And I said, I mean, I don't know, but I think, yeah, that might be a good idea. And so the next morning when we got up, she checked Mila's blood sugar, and that is how we ended up in urgent care. And then, first the ER, then urgent care, and then 4-night hospital stay in LA. And my daughter was diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic. that was obviously a lot to take on initially. It's a lot of information, a lot of things that have to change in your life, in your day-to-day care and keeping of a child. And that first night in the hospital, I was lying there feeling very overwhelmed and really just crying out to God. I was listening to the song Firm Foundation on repeat because I felt like I just needed to remind myself of God's presence, remind myself of God's goodness. And Psalm 23 popped into my head, and so I pulled out my phone and I read it. And honestly, those two things, that song and Psalm 23, have been on repeat for the last 11 months. I was so overwhelmed and feeling like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, God. I don't know how we're going to keep caring for this child who now has all these special needs. How are we supposed to let her go to school and be away from us and trust other people to take care of her? Her care is so specialized and nuanced now. And who is going to care as much as we do? And God really reminded me, I do. I care. I care more than you do. And not only that, I created her to be ready and able for this assignment. I knit every little part of her together, even that little pancreas of hers that has now failed. I knew that that was coming. And so, which we saw, played out in so many ways in the coming weeks after we came back home. We were discharged from the hospital and we came back home, and we had to figure out, we had to call her school and talk to her teachers, and found out that there was already a teacher on staff at her school at the time who was also a type 1 diabetic, and she was able to go into the classroom and prepare Mila's class for all of the changes that were going to be happening, to teach them about type 1 diabetes so that Mila didn't have to have that burden when she came back to school. That teacher was also on hand and so helpful to be able to give her insulin when she was going to eat lunch, and really just helped to be a great support system. We just saw God work in so many different ways that it was all just a constant reminder of God's goodness and God's faithfulness. And so now, even now, almost a year later, when we have really hard diabetes days, because they're going to continue to happen, I rely on Psalm 23 and the song Firm Foundation and remind myself that God is so good and so faithful and so loving and caring, and that even when I feel overwhelmed or underqualified, that He is there and that He has all of this in hand, that He is our good shepherd, and that He will leave the 99 for the one and be with us in the darkest valleys and lead us by still waters and all of that. God is so good and so faithful. And so I just want to encourage you with the same. God is good and He is faithful. And if you are feeling overwhelmed and underqualified in whatever it is that you have going on in your life, God has it well in hand, and He has prepared everything ahead of you. Thank you.